Hello and welcome back to Max Black. We have a very serious conversation today about the state of nurses. You know, we've been plodding our way through this pandemic now for over a year, and we've been seeing the numbers associated with that go up and down and now back up again. But no one seems to ask, how are nurses faring in this, I would argue, man-made disaster in terms of how this has been mismanaged in many ways. So with that in mind, I have an amazing panel of experts here. Please join me in welcoming the incredible Wendy Garvin.
Hi, my name is Wendy Garvin Mayo. I'm a nurse practitioner and stress solution strategist, and I empower nurses to adopt sustainable stress management solutions so they can improve their quality of life while they're taking care of others.
Thank you, Wendy. And Danita.
My name is Danita J. Clark, and I am a healthcare growth strategist. I groom and mentor new graduate nurses, highly trained, so that they can sustain, a successful life and provide exceptional patient care at the bedside.
All righty. Well, Wendy and Danita, as I mentioned at the very top, it's not lost on me that in all of my experiences in hospitals, between giving birth to my sons and being there when my father was in the hospital, for example, it was very obvious to me that nurses do like 99.9% of the work. I mean, the doctors come in, they come out. They're important. I'm not dissing doctors, but let's just be real. 99.9% of the work, the nurses are doing that, right? And so it makes me wonder, with all the pressure that has been put on the healthcare system as a result of the pandemic, nurses, I'm assuming, are struggling with stress, with everything that's going on. Let's start with you, Wendy. What have you seen in terms of the mental health effects of this pandemic on nurses, and how can you help them with that, given your expertise around stress management?
Yeah, so right now nurses are not doing well. I think we think about the mental and physical impact this pandemic is having on them, but it's depleting their soul. A lot of nurses just feel completely depleted, not just from work, but what's happening at home, because those things impact what they bring to work, right? So families, their kids, their husbands. And what I bring is really giving them permission, so to speak, to take time for themselves, understand what they need, and honor that. Because many times us nurses, we're just going. We're just constantly going and giving. And, they say you can't pour from an empty cup. Our nurses are pouring, but we're not pouring effectively from our cups.
Because you don't have time to refill it.
No, absolutely.
Oh, my goodness. Danita, your experience with the nurses that you're working with, what have they, first of all, were they properly even prepared? Were they set up from the beginning, in essence, for failure in that sense, in terms of not giving what they need to be able to sustain themselves in navigating this pandemic?
No. So I'm glad you did ask that question. No, but nurses have never been trained on the protocols of how to deal with a pandemic, right? Everything we've learned, it's just real time, right? All the protocols, all the practices, all the PPE. And so when people look at us, they assume that we know, right? We don't. We've been trained to care for other people. We haven't been trained to care for ourselves. So now with all of this, trying to save everyone else's lives when your life is hanging in the balance.
That's an excellent point. Let's just stay there for a minute, because I think most of us don't really consider. I mean, we hear, is particularly to me, one of the most tragic things around this pandemic is the number of healthcare workers who have laid down their lives trying to provide assistance to others, fighting against the political dynamic that have people, for political purposes, make millions of people or influence millions of people to engage in unhealthy practices that put you at risk. So how are nurses sort of dealing with that pressure of knowing that they're putting their lives in danger when they go home with their families? They're potentially putting their families' lives in danger, not just because they want to live up to their passion of helping people, but also because they're fighting against a political dynamic that's making their work even more difficult.
Well, the problem is they're not dealing with it, right? We went from burnout to now we're into PTSD mode.
Oh my God.
Where we are, what do I do? Do I lose my job? Do I help patients? Do I take care of my family? Which way do I go with this? And the thing of it is that we really need to have someone say, who's going to care for the nurses? Because like she said, pouring from an empty cup, no one asks the question, how are the nurses doing? They just assume that we're doing fine. And the organizations want you to keep working. as if nothing is going on.
Wendy, from your perspective.
Yeah, so what's happening with nurses now is we are leaving the bedside. That's how a lot of us are dealing with it.
Wow.
And I recall one of my clients actually left the bedside without even having a job,
Oh, wow.
just to really maintain her mental health. So left the profession, don't have anything to go to, but that really shows the magnitude of the impact this pandemic is having on us. And then many nurses are starting their own business, just don't want to be at the bedside, but we need nurses at the bedside, you know, especially with the nursing shortage and our aging population. It's really a crisis. Our profession is really in crisis mode right now.
It is. So if you guys had a crystal ball, starting with you, Wendy, what do you think you need to make nurses whole, to make this right?
So we need to be here in DC and be part of the change. We need a seat at the table to really fight for what we need. Nurses have to be at the table. Many times, policies that impact us, we are not involved in those conversations. So we need to, you know, if we're not at the table, we need to make our own table to really, you know, put forth that change. So that's what we need to do as nurses, come together.
I love that. What do you think, Danita?
We need a holistic approach. On top of what she said, we need to invest in ourselves. We need to get that psychosocial healing and empowerment and just find our space, right? We need someone to say, hey, how are you doing? How can I help you? And just transform it from a business model to this is a person model, right? These people care for people effortlessly. And who cares for them, right? In order to continue to do what we do, because I can't imagine going into a hospital without a nurse, right?
Exactly.
And so in order to continue to grow that service line, because they are a service line, you have to invest in them.
Now, I know that both of you work with nurses to help fill that void in some way. Can you each talk to me a little bit about what you do? And we'll start with you, Wendy, about what you do to help nurses navigate this moment and how that's going.
Yep, so I help nurses really slow down and really understand their added value. So what value they bring to the profession and themselves, and really uncover that and have that show up in what they do. So in terms of stress management, because for me, stress really paralyzes us. When you're stressed, you can't think straight. You're not doing things straight. So really maintaining that. So understanding what you need, honoring that, so you can flourish.
I love that. Danita.
I actually groom and mentor new graduate nurses, helping them navigate the system so that we can prevent burnout, right? A lot of people do things for money. Money is not the answer every single time, right? Why do you do what you do? And let me help you do it successfully, right? Through empowerment, through, you know, the psychological support, and then, you know, specializing so that you're highly trained.
Absolutely. Right? I definitely hear you. Any final tips you would give anyone that is maybe considering going into nurses? You know, we're at this point where my oldest is finishing graduate school. My youngest is going into college. So there are a lot of young people who are deciding what they want to do next. With everything that you've stated, I don't even know that I would encourage my young person. And that's unfortunate because we need nurses, as you've said. So any tips that you would give either parents or young people themselves that are considering a profession in nursing, what they need to do to better prepare for this moment?
So I believe that nurses are phenomenal people, and what we do, not anyone can just do it. So yes, I would still encourage people because we need you. We need compassionate and caring people. But before you just venture off into an organization or to nursing school, like, seek out a mentor. Seek someone who is going to train and guide and just care about your mental well-being, you know, your physical demeanor. It's just not about getting a job. It's a career that's going to last a lifetime.
Absolutely. Any thoughts from you, Wendy?
Yes, so nursing is a dynamic profession, and you can do anything in nursing. So I would say we need you if you are really genuine about taking care of people and being a change agent. So yes, nursing is the #1 profession.
I love it.
Yes.
Well, I know who are the #1 people to help nurses. Both of you.
Yes.
You will share that. You will share that designation. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely, and thank you for joining us on Max Black.